Give thanks, my Lord, for the presentation. It's been very educative. Yes, now the floor is open for comments and questions. If I'm allowed to go first, we've learned a lot tonight, my Lord. And one thing I've noticed is that even the name means female, like female, ones who bring wealth. But unfortunately, when we go to the Bingi, it looks like it's a male-dominated field. We hardly see Niyabinghi priestesses. We hardly see females play the Niyabinghi drum. So, would somebody say today Rastafari, like we have become patriarchal, or maybe our relationship with the gospel has influenced how we conduct maybe our Bingi and even our understanding of Niyabinghi today? My Lord, my question. I give thanks.
Rascal Fiasate, I give thanks for your question. The beautiful thing about your question is that you already answered you already answered yourself whilst asking the question. So, what do I mean by that? Absolutely. Today we see, Rastafari heavily male-oriented, right? But we still have sisters who are part of us. As we said, there was a point in time, I think that is also directly coming from the youth black faith, when the whole orientation tilted more to the male side than to the female side. Now, even within the Niyabinghi order itself, we have begun to make some kind of changes, right? Because some of the things that people like Ras Dwanages and stuff introduced are not necessarily encouraged as part of the landscape today. Let me give you a typical example. So, in the formation of the Niyabinghi, even when there is like a service and there's a gathering, all the men are supposed to be on one side and all the women are supposed to be on one side. In the Niyabinghi, according to the order that was set up by Ras Dwanages and his compatriots, women are not supposed to even preach or vibe or give vibe, in the gathering, right? So we see that these kind of ideas heavily influence, as you put it, a patriarchal system, which means a system that is only led by men. And this system is now being questioned because, Ras Dwanages has moved on. Most of the brethren who he started with have already also moved on. And people are now saying, these kind of things, we need to revisit some of these ideas. But you're also absolutely right. I think that with the exception of a few places, that we can see a heavy female participation in Rastafari. In most places today, it's still mostly male dominated, right? And I think we need to work harder to encourage more sisters, and also to encourage leadership of sisters within INI. But I think that in this time, most items are not against the leadership of sisters. You will still find some ones and ones who may think that a sister cannot administrate or preach or vibe or do this kind of things. But the majority of INI people, that is no longer the case. But we do want to encourage and work hard to make sure that more sisters are more visible and are in leadership positions within Rastafari. So give thanks. It's,
Yes, my Lord, please. Does anybody want to put up a question, comments?
Can I say something?
Yes, I.
Yes, I love the way you make it with the Mau because like you actually inferred the idea that see that you're talking about how Babylon started to talk about how they were killing black people, or killing people like crazy, but basically killing black people. And actually, there's an element of truth in there. Like Mao Mao, in terms of numbers, had to kill more black people than white people. Of course, because there were more black people there. But the idea was they were targeting, just like Niyabinghi, like you're showing. If you understand what you're doing and you work with them, everything's fine. But if you're going to work with oppressor, serve. And Mao Mao worked with that principle, So when you look at the numbers, you definitely see a lot more black people that had to deal with than white people, But speaks to the Niyabinghi ethos, That, like we're saying, Frederick, lost them safe. Actually, we see the essence of what we do, Like all the forces that are working against us, we got to be dealt with some finality,
Absolutely, and I give thanks for that point because that's absolutely correct, right? Mama also, very much like Niyabinghi, as he said, had to eradicate some black people who were working on behalf of the Europeans. But we also see this in the Haitian Revolution, right? When the Haitian Revolution started, one of the things that they said was, we have to take out all the black people who are working on behalf of the whites. Otherwise, we're not going to succeed. And that's what they did. So what the lesson is, what do we learn from this, right? These long-standing movements, these movements that have made great impact, have also had to deal with, black oppressors, so to speak, right? And how do we even identify these black oppressors in this time, right? And how do we resist their working on behalf of the colonizer? So give thanks for that input.
Thanks. A little follow-up if possible.
Sure.
Go ahead. Or someone else want to speak?
Go ahead, Aya.
I think go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, Musa, the time they arrested him finally, interestingly, this was the time they had imposed the borders on us, right? Berlin Conference happened where if they say this be your border, that be in, right? They expect you to not question that. And the final time they arrested him, she launched an assault, an operation against that. Then the white people meet that it says this be our border, where people just, attack them, and there was a fight, and through that, that's how they were able to get here. But the principle behind it is that no matter what they've said, this is how things will be. Things will be. We will not say what we say is what matters. Unfortunately, a lot of things they make us say, well, they say this, and then we back off, But Musa and Niyabinghi is showing us that the term shouldn't be theirs. The whole of Africa was supposed to be quiet and accept the borders. But she went there to say, hey, no, you can't mark this thing. It doesn't make sense to us. Yeah, that's a little bit I want to say. And then the quick one about the women, too. There's a saying that Niyabinghi left East Africa and went to Jamaica, When some people talk about, something was happening in East Africa, there's a sense that it left there. But I appreciate the way you're able to point to Sudan, Angola, all these places. West Africa, too, where people were deriving inspiration from what happened from Niyabinghi and actually living Niyabinghi. And the fact that the woman thing has to be taken seriously, what does it mean for us to learn from women if we be fighters, for our liberation, It's like you're saying, it's skewed a little bit. And maybe that's why we're still in this state. Because I think women to fight in another way that we could think of what Musa them go, Yahasantua, So I was thinking about the womanity when we held Niyabinghi central, crucial, before really cultivate that.
True. And even, the beautiful thing also is that, in terms of talking about this attack against the borders that the Europeans were creating, even after Niyabinghi passed on, we have Ndumbuguti, who also, took up the struggle, right, and continued. So, I think the lesson we learn from all this is that we have to be so powerful and so knowledgeable and so ready at all times that, the struggle continues. Just because one person moves on doesn't mean that things have to fade out. And sometimes, if we have an organization, for instance, that is led by one person, sometimes it suffers that kind of fate. When that person is no longer there, then there's like division and infighting and all kind of stuff. And this has also happened to some of our organizations within Rastafari. But I think what lesson we can learn from Musa here is having many lieutenants, who are ready to take it up, after you're no longer on the scene. So give thanks for those words. You're fine. You muted. You muted, Aya.
You hear me now? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you're saying about having a lot of people doing the thing, like continuity. And I just he say Muhammad said they finally arrested him. He spent like what 20 years in prison, right?
Right.
He was in jail for like 20 years, right? For the rest of her life, right? I think so.
Yeah.
All that while the attacks were continuing.
Yeah.
The fighting didn't stop. That's a very crucial point you're making, because if all of us defeat the operating rather than one person.
Absolutely.
The thing is alive,
Absolutely. People rising up in the Congo, right? Also Niyabinghi, right? And fighting the struggle over there. So, and I think the beautiful thing also is these people were not thinking, like you mentioned earlier, not in the terms of the European border, right? They were thinking in terms of Africans against the colonialists. So whether you are in what is called Congo or Rwanda or Uganda, it's the same struggle. We can rise up in the name of Niyabinghi and fight against the colonialists. Whereas I think that today we have a more rigid interpretation of, for instance, who is, say, a Ghanaian and who is a Togolese, right? Whereas, in that time, somebody who was, classified as a Ghanaian by the European could rise up and go to a place like Togo and fight against the colonial masters over there, because they were not necessarily being bounded by this notion of European classification of where you are a citizen of. So I think that's a very important thing that we also need to learn. Even though Rastafari, for the most part, have that understanding, I think that we should still learn from these elders who paved the way for Ireland. Inside. Go ahead. All right. Any other comments or questions? Well, yes, I think somebody's time is up. Go through.
Yeah,
Okay, so greetings. I'm Kwame Pio, and then I wanted to ask this that now from the beginning with the Niyabinghi from beginning, as you're saying, and up to date of the Niyabinghi we know now, has it really lose that potency from the beginning? That potency from the beginning. With when as to hence that the British banded fetish life and say it was a fetish kind of thing, and to now has it really lose its potency? If not, then I would like to know more about that. Yes, thank you.
Well, that's a great question, right? And in order to answer that question, let's bring it even more closer home. When we look at a place like Ghana, in 1948, you have what is known as the Watson Commission report. And in that Watson Commission report, a similar thing happened where they said that they are working hard to fight against African belief systems. So they were fighting against beliefs in like African traditional practices. Similar to what was a witchcraft ban in Uganda. The Russian Commission also articulated this kind of point, and we see that after the 1948 to 1950s, the landscape kind of changes in Ghana, where we see a lot of churches, mushrooming and taking over the landscape. If you tell somebody once upon a time Tigari was all over Ghana, it's hard for them to imagine that, right? But the Europeans were very intentional in attacking the leaders of these traditional belief systems and vilifying them, and also making sure that nobody was following them per se. Now, your question asks, has Niyabinghi lost its potency? In as much as I would like to say no, but if we look, for instance, what Muhumusa, for instance, was doing, we cannot really say that, we're doing that right now. Right? I think that right now, a lot of us have kind of assumed a kind of a back seat, right, as opposed to a front seat. And because of that, Niyabinghi today, it's more of like a faith-based thing, as opposed to also, being heavy on the political front, as Niyabinghi Muhumusa did. We would like to see more of that, right? More of being very active. When I say political, I don't mean NDC and NPP per se. I mean fighting for your rights as a people, right? People like even Rand Bonagis and the people who started in Jamaica earlier on, they used to put marches. They used to make their voices heard. They used to walk to Parliament and all these kind of places to make their voices heard. They did not necessarily begin any kind of political party per se, right? But they used activism, which I think that is something that Rastafari today is a little bit lacking, is the activism that was really a part of Rastafari in the earlier days. So in terms of losing potency, yeah, to an extent, we can say that potency has gone down, but has it been eradicated? I would say no. We can certainly revive that potency and bring it back today, and also champion the rights of African people at home and abroad. And give thanks for that question.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Greetings. I want to question and make an input. So my system, I don't think is very clear. So were you saying the youth black movement or the new black movement? That's my first question.
Yes, sir. The Youth Black Faith. YBF. YOUTH. Black BLACK. Faith FAITH.
Give thanks. So then it takes me to the next thing where I think Moses was talking about the patriarchy within Rastafari. And to a certain extent, it's something we have to address. Because in traditional Niyabinghi settings, the sistering is relegated to the background. And one of the things is, you see, Rastafari is evolved based on myths and half-truths. And so people may not even know that Niyabinghi is a woman thing or was started by the sisters.
Very true.
Important in a culture like African culture, where the role of a woman or a mother is pronounced, that we reset these things. What we're starting now is a huge evolution that we may not even appreciate where we're going with this thing. And it ties in with the new faculty. Moses, how does Marina say that thing? New African faculty.
Some African Rastafari, new faculty of understanding.
That is where we're going now. Because you see, Rastafari has been positioned for want of a better word, as something that is coming from the Caribbeans. But these conversations are showing that even the wearing of dreadlocks was largely influenced by things that were happening on the continent. You know, so I want to believe that we need to prepare really for this revolution and for this resetting of the tenets of Rastafari. And I like to give thanks for the good work done by Prof. Sudiro, which is continuing on what Seven Fireside started on the baby a few weeks back. What I'm looking forward to is a write-up. Because what it is people learn differently. Some people learn by watching and listening. Some people to learn by reading. So I said in the beginning that these material should be archived for the future, but I think they should be transcribed too.
Okay.
You know, so that ones and ones can actually take their time, study these things, and also do private analysis, so that as we're moving forward, the role of the system will be better appreciated and positioned. And then for I and I as continental Rastafari, we will appreciate our role in this whole scheme of affairs. Because Wiro was saying that the activities of Mao Mao largely influenced the development of Rastafari in the 40s and early 50s. Some of us have actually held this view through some research we had been doing, because the early dreads, if you look at Leonard Howell and co., they weren't lockmen in that they were wearing what we call dreadlocks, but they had their precepts. And it was Mao Mao achieved a certain prominence in the media that history shows that more dreadlocks started appearing in Jamaica. So we need to tie in all these things so that as we're moving forward, continental Africans will appreciate what we need to do further as the faith of Rastafari continues to evolve. Give thanks.
Yes, thanks for that sound. It's very, very important. I think that when we cast our minds back, to when Leonard Howell was arrested and brought to the Moran Bay court, one of the things they noted was that there's a lot of women, and the women were vocal and defending Leonard Howell, right? So we see that right after that period, when the youth black faith comes into the picture, and they are more like aggressive, for the lack of a better word. Then we still say at that time too, the women in the movement start to kind of diminish, right? You take like you said, the Niyabinghi, even within their congregation, you find that males have a whole lot of prominence, whereas the females are relegated to the background. And these are all ideas from Ras Boanerges and his compatriots, which I can settle state that it's coming from Paul in the Bible, who said that women should not be allowed in the congregation and all those kinds of things, to the congregation that is. So, like what Bosco said, it's time for Rastafari to have this new faculty of interpretation, and this new faculty of interpretation has to be directly with the origin of Rastafari in Africa. We're looking at, the African worldview, and this African worldview is the same worldview that informs Mama, that informs Niyabinghi, that informs all these resistance movements against colonialism, but also informs us about how we look at the world. Like making it massive it's a male-dominated system. But if you look at it carefully, you just peel off that surface, you can still see the original structures that permitted either gender to be able to take the reins, lead, and participate and shape and stuff like that. And we got to work at that, as Papa Bosco said, because, and as 755 also reiterated, that could even be the reason why some of the things that we need as Rastafari is not moving in a certain direction, because of the lack of full participation by the system. But it's also important to state that this cycle of inspiration between the continent of Africa and the Caribbean is also important, because when Europeans took people away from Africa to the Caribbean, they also took a part of Africa away. They took a part of the African story away. So there are some things that even to today, you can find that some of the original forms of these practices have been kept in the Caribbean, right? As opposed to even on the motherland. Because remember, we all went through colonization, and colonization is, sometimes we tend to think of colonization as European rule, but it's more than that. Colonization is European rule, which has been enacted to eradicate all practices that speak to the identity and the culture of the people, and institute European practices, European ways of knowing, European ways of doing things. So if we are emancipating ourselves from mental slavery, then we also have to, in alignment, make sure that we are identifying the practices that were introduced into our system by these colonizers, because that's what we are going to be emancipating ourselves from. Not just, by feeling that you've done so, but you have to be able to know that, hey, wait a minute, this thing I'm doing or I'm believing, where did it come from, right? Is it from the colonists, or is it from my original African self? So, I'm sure if some of these elders who were advocating for the patriarchal system to be entrenched in Rastafari, such as, Ras Bonagis and stuff, if they had looked at it from a purely African point of view, they may have been able to correct themselves and, not push so hard for that is dominated by male. So I think that the blueprint is already there. We just have to refer to it and implement it. Okay. Are you asking a question? Why? How much fee is on it? Oh. Okay. You can go
My lord, any more questions, comments? Rasa Jonah, you have not spoken. Son of Man, NDC Rasta Caucus. Any comments, questions?
My take would be, when could we possibly have the write-up on this position? That's my next. That could also be shared on the website as educational material.
I think that's a great question. It's a matter of time. So I would say, well, let's reason, and then we can fix some time within which that can happen. But possibly, within some weeks. But yeah, we can work on something.
Because I think going forward, one of the outcomes of these videos, that apart from the the video that will be uploaded on YouTube, link shared on the website, be a write-up It may not be as detailed as the presentation, but it should be something that will cover the salient points of the presentation, so that somebody can pick it up and then see, oh, in 1949, while in Ghana we were agitating for independence under the leadership of the CPD, which had been newly formed. In Jamaica, there was this youth black, that kind of thing, and it will help us connect the dots. Because I believe that the conscientization of the black man did not happen only on the motherland or in the Caribbean, but it was like a global phenomenon. Such write-ups will help ones and ones who are doing further research and analysis to be able to connect the dots in our shared difference.
All right. So we'll be sure to try to put something together for Bosco within the coming, let's say, in about 2 weeks or so. Latest.
Let's give thanks. Give thanks.
Give thanks.
And Royal, I want to put it up here, right? But you were saying that next year we're going to be having the 10th National Rastafari Conference and the first International Rastafari Conference. And we've been discussing ideas like having an exhibition as part of the program, so that I know these days people are doing digital exhibitions and all those things where with the click of a button you see a whole lot of works. So as we're building these archives, this will all be material that we could share or display during the conference next year, so that ones and ones, like somebody who has come to the exhibition, can spend a few hours going through all these archival material with a scan of a QR code, can be able to get the link to all the write-ups on the on the series. Give thanks.
Give thanks.
Yes, give thanks, my Lord. We work towards that. Russell Jonah is here, so I believe he has copied. But my lords, we've not heard from you, Russell Jonah, son of man. Before. Yes, anything you have comments, questions on the presentation?
Yes, I can. I've been listening quietly here. So far so good. First time hearing most of the things Prof has put across, so just digesting them accordingly. Nothing much to say, but knowledge is power. Thanks, Prof. We will always keep up and make sure that we are attentive to all these lectures as they are available to us. And I'm glad to say we have copies that we can refer to at any time, and whoever comes in can also fall onto it. For now, no question and no comment that much. And I believe Prof is always available. Whenever a question is available, we can throw to him and we get the necessary response accordingly. Thanks so much, Prof.
Give thanks, for all the mighty works we to do. So much thanks, Rastafari.
Give thanks.
All right. There's another question coming up here, so make me see.
So, greetings, blessings, and love. I don't know if the ones can see me, but I am Asanswa Apanwadye, wife and queen of Rasviro. And I really appreciated this presentation, and I would like to see it done again. But here's my question. one of the things you emphasized was that Niyabinghi was passed from mother to daughter, and they did that with the intention of not having it die out. And so they trained, and I want to stay there, they trained these younger women to take their place in the event that something happened to them, in the event of their demise. So what I'm seeing trending in Rastafari in the United States is that Niyabinghi is trying to deal with its own internal contradictions. How can you be a liberation movement and then have things that women can't do? And so what happens is that they just put women on the drum. You know, you can drum if you come to a Niyabinghi session, and that satisfies the need for women to be, you know, seen as an equal. But that is not, if I am understanding, what the original or Mahumusa, Queen Mahumusa, and the other strong women who set out on an anti-colonial tone, that's not really what they were going for necessarily. You know what I'm saying? Because per the record, I don't think they played drums at all. They went inside of drums and prophesied from inside of drums as the voice of drums. So I'm interested in finding out, you know, what conditions can be put in place to train Black women to harness traditional Black women's power, including the power of spirit trance, because this is a field and a genre that we hold not only as Black women but as Black people almost exclusively, and that is why Europeans fear it, because they can't enter it, right? And they just don't, even if they can enter it, they don't have the finesse that we have once we're in there. And I would like to ask specifically the Ghana National Rastafari Council, what is being done in the council to train Rastafari women to harness that power?
Well, you know, I think that since you posed the question to Rastafari Council, we'll have somebody respond to that. But I also think that it is important to emphasize the whole idea of training the next generation, right? Intentionally. It's not something that we can take for granted. We have to be purposeful about that, and we have to be, you know, emphatic that, you know, this occurs. If it's not your own child, you could train some other young people. I mean, or both, right? To make sure that they are ready, because, you know, we have children to lead when they are prepared. So absolutely. But in terms of, I think that if you were paying earlier attention to what we're discussing, I think that the point was also made that there is a general lack of women within Rastafari, and therefore, you know, I think that's something that has also plagued us back home in Ghana for a long time. And if there are very few women, then the difficulty arises in even attempting to train any younger ones. But it is not impossible, and I'll like to hear what anybody else has to say in relation to that.
Hello, Daddy Bosco will take that. We'll address the women in Rastafari.
Maybe you also want to get to address it, Rascal Facility, so it could go either way. I think about that the Bosco dropped off.
Yes, well, Daddy, please, will you take it out? The question on training. Well, maybe Daddy is settling, but okay, Daddy coming.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Aha. So what I'm saying is that a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step. And this is one of the things we're doing, which will prepare the grounds for proper training. And that's why, if you remember, I was saying all these things should be written up so that they become material. Now, having said that, we need to appreciate that Rastafari is not a man's thing alone exclusively. Unfortunately, have a huge role to play in doing what you call it. So all these presentations will be part of the material that should be used to train the next generation. And I'm looking forward with excitement to the 10th National Rastafari conference. So far, the conversation is that it should not be a one-day event. It should be an event over a period of days. And I believe that we will have something in there for the sisters in terms of preparing them to provide leadership. Give thanks.
Give thanks. Give thanks for that sound. I also think that the point was made in terms of the liberation movement having contradictions within itself to the extent that it seeks to liberate itself from itself, so to speak. In other words, within the Niyabinghi, there is this idea of being a liberation movement, whilst at the same time needing to liberate women who are part of that structure. And I think that as that occurs, we should also be careful not to just assign things that men do necessarily to women. And that is not necessarily equality. I think that equality is real when men do what they are strong at doing, and we also provide opportunities for women to be strong at what they do. So just putting a woman on the drums for per se may not be the way to go. But providing opportunity for women to speak to the congregation may have a more powerful weight than just simply putting them on a drum. So these are some of the things that I think we should be thinking about as we move forward. But give thanks for that sound, for Bosco on those considerations. Yes, side, fire side. You're muted.
Yes, I apologize. Yeah, just following up on what Empress Santos said, very is a delight hearing the sister speak, not just because it's pleasant, but, it's edifying every time. And what did I say right now about put them on the drum and you think say you fix the problem? What I think is we need to accept is that what we're dealing with is not the deal, right? Let's not act like things have been sort of okay and we just need to patch things up. Because when we really get with this idea that, the Empress to talk about, the I to talk about Niyabinghi, the woman and all that, we're going to have to come up with another way of looking at things. That's my position. We don't have to let them come and do the things we've been doing, like what the I just said. Right? Because that's what might happen. Like, this is the framework. So just come and flavor with your woman thing. No. Clean slate. What happens when women bring their ideas, really? And we're in conversation with those ideas, like more or less, almost. I'm going to put out an extreme idea, but just make a point. Let's just act like we don't remember how we used to do things. Let a woman come in, and then we create a way off of that. You know what I'm saying? Because many efforts have been made to try to work this gender issue up, and a lot of times it's on the terms of how the world is already structured. Right? And for us as Africans, we know that we deal with a different set of laws, it's different principles. But the colonial thing is really holding a lot of us. in a certain state. So we have to come in like, okay, if we're doing something right here, Prof. Wiros was saying, complementary, right? But also with a mindset of state of invention, creation. We're creating something versus, oh, this is the temp, and let's bring them in and let them give them some roles inside. Maybe the roles are wrong. Maybe a lot of concepts you're working with are so, they're not tenable. So when we say we're bringing a woman into the picture, it's not like come and do what we think you have to do, or this is your assigned role. We have to come up with new ways of understanding things altogether, maybe.
And to that point, I think that room should be made for the woman to define their contribution, right? Yeah, man. Whereas it's not we telling them, this is what I think you should be working on, as you just pointed out. So give thanks to that. All right. Rascal Fiasati, I think if there are no more questions, we can bring this session to a close. Once again, I very appreciative of all ones and ones who took time to be a part of this. I am strengthened, I am sharpened, I am each one strengthened the other. So we're here to strengthen each other. So we give thanks for the strength, we give thanks for the vibe, we give thanks for everything. Rastafari.
Rastafari, we give thanks, my Lord.
Rastafari.
For our presence and also the wisdom we shared, especially the presenter, Prof. Wiro. We've learned a lot from you, and we appreciate that. Next presentation is on the 15th, 2 weeks ahead, and it will be led by Kwesi Anoche, Ras 7 Fireside, and the topic is Rastafari and party politics. So it's the month of Kwame Nkrumah, and so we are inspired by the topic Rastafari and party politics, and we hope to learn a lot. We encourage I to keep sharing the flyers to help us reach ones and ones so that others can also participate and or appreciate the conversation or reasoning that we are having. We give thanks for the contribution from Empress, especially on how we can increase the female participation. We hope in our subsequent lecture, more females will be present. We give thanks once and all, my lords. I do appreciate once and all for your presence.
I think somebody has a question.
Yes.
So, Brother Kofi, sorry, I had a call, so I didn't get to hear the end of presentation comment. But I wanted to just say one more thing and ask one more thing. Not nothing serious, but I think it's important to me. When I'm walking around in town, people say, Niyabinghi. How do I respond to that?
Well, Rastafari, right? Yes, Yeah, but it's still Niyabinghi. We're not against Niyabinghi. We are still inspired by Niyabinghi. We are here because of Niyabinghi. So if they see Niyabinghi in us, we give thanks, which means that we're still trying, we're still doing something positive. So tell them to keep saying Niyabinghi,
Okay, and the response will be what? Rastafari, same way?
Yeah, Rastafari, same way.
Okay.
Last year, Yes, True.
You also have something to say. So can you come in? Fine.
Yeah. Yes, Kofi Asante. This is son of Mabel Osiri First, founder, leader, and chairman of NDC Rasta Caucus. Yes. Yeah. I appreciate the reasoning, and we learn a lot from the Niyabinghi, and we want the Niyabinghi to empower the youths and the women as well, so that it can be, we can we all support it to be huge or to spread all over, centralized, Yes. So this is the only thing that I can say. But I think the next meeting, I have a lot to say anyway. Give thanks.
Give thanks, amen.
Give thanks, Son of Man. In this, my Lord.
Peace, love and unity,
If there's nothing more to add, I'll ask maybe Ras 7 Fireside to give his closer remarks and maybe close us finally. I give thanks.
I want to just thanks to for everyone who are day here, but I don't have much to say again. If you go close to the thing, rather Rastafari or something, please. Yeah, but I just want to give for yes, everyone in this happen.
All right, my Lord, I give thanks. Daddy Bosco, please, any final words?
What I'll say is that this is very inspiring, and I pray that we'll have the strength to continue. They say knowledge is power, and the multitude of reasoning, wisdom is not lacking. So I look forward to subsequent sessions, and as I've indicated already, let's make sure all this is archived for future reference, and the transcriptions or the summaries of the presentations too will help. Give thanks, Rastafari.
Rastafari. We give thanks, my God. Have a blessed day. Rastafari.
You too. Rastafari.
Rastafari.
Bless.
Rastafari.